On the 27th March 1999 in West Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a 21-year-old lady, Natise Johnson, who was 9 months pregnant, was talking to her best friend over the phone while inside the house. Her pregnancy was already due with 3 days, and she was about to give birth any time. She heard a knock on the door, so she hanged up her phone and went to open the door. Standing at the door was a 20-year-old man, Kareem Samson, who was her childhood friend. She let him in. Natise Johnson and Kareem's girlfriend were good friends. Unfortunately, the girlfriend had broken up with Kareem, who was abusive and controlling, so the girlfriend took their baby and fled away. Kareem, however, refused to let her now ex-girlfriend go, so he demanded that Natise must tell him the whereabouts of his ex-girlfriend. Natise refused to tell him. Kareem got angry. He pulled out his gun and shot Natise Johnson 3 times in the head while in the kitchen. Natise and her unborn baby died on the spot. Natise Johnson and her unborn baby didn't deserve to die this senseless death. This is the story of Natise Johnson. Natise Johnson was born in the year 1978 in West Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her father was known as Howard, and he worked as a truck driver. Natise was the youngest of her siblings. One of her sisters was known as Crystal. After her high school education, Natise wanted to become a lawyer so that she could help those who were being abused. She had dated 2 men, but all of those relationships were abusive, and they didn't work. Finally, she met a man named Tyree. The two became friends, and later on they started dating. Soon, Natise became pregnant for her boyfriend, Tyree. They were both excited about the pregnancy, and they were waiting with so much anxiety when the baby would be born. Tyree worked in the Navy, and he was stationed in Virginia, despite the huge distance between him and his girlfriend, Natise Johnson. Both of them always spoke on the phone all the time, and Tyree planned to be present when Natise would be giving birth. When Natise's family and friends learned that she was pregnant, they were very happy and excited about the new baby who would be arriving in the family very soon, so they threw for Natise a baby shower. It was a very happy occasion, and Natise had already knew that she would be giving birth to a baby girl, so she took the chance to decide on the name that she would call her baby. On Saturday, 27th March 1999, after Natise had spoken with her sister Crystal, she was on the phone talking to her best friend at 12 p.m. They talked for about an hour. At 1 p.m., Natise heard a knock on the door, so she told her friend that she would call her back. She hanged up the phone and went to open the door. Upon opening the door, she saw Kareem Samson, and since they were childhood friends, she let him in. Kareem Samson and Natise Johnson had known each other for years. The two studied at the same school. However, during their school days, they both had a mutual friend who was a lady. After completing their education, Kareem, who was 20 years old, worked at a nursing home in the suburbs of the city. He then began dating the lady who was their mutual friend at school. Later, the lady became pregnant, and they were blessed with a child together. The couple agreed to marry each other. However, on the course of their relationship, Kareem started being abusive towards the lady. When the abusiveness became too much, the lady could not tolerate it, so she took their child and left the relationship. The lady then met Natise's brother and they started dating. However, later on, she again took her child and left the relationship. Kareem couldn't accept that her girlfriend had left him, so he wanted her back. He knew that his ex-girlfriend was friends with Natise, so in order to know her whereabouts, Kareem began to constantly call Natise. He would ask her where his ex-girlfriend was, and when Natise told him that she didn't know, Kareem accused Natise of lying to him, so he would harass her. Natise went to the kitchen, and he followed her there. He confronted her about what she knew about his ex-girlfriend, since he was convinced that Natise knew about her whereabouts. During that time, Natise was 9 months pregnant and 3 days overdue. She was supposed to have given birth already, but the labor pain had not yet started. So Tyree, Natise's boyfriend, was on his way coming to check on her. While inside the kitchen, Kareem demanded that Natise should tell him about his ex-girlfriend's whereabouts. However, Natise refused to tell him. Instead, she told him that his ex-girlfriend was a big girl and she could do whatever she wanted. Natise didn't want to involve herself in Kareem's love drama, Her response made Kareem more angry, so he pulled out his gun and shot Natise 3 times in the head and once at the back, killing her and her unborn baby. Kareem then fled away from the scene of crime to escape with the murder. Later on, Natise's father, Howard, came home at around 7:30 p.m. in the evening after working almost the entire day. Upon entering inside the house, it was very dark inside, so he called out for Natise several times. However, he got no response, so he made his way into the kitchen and he turned on the light. He got so shocked when he saw Natise lying on the floor covered in blood, so he quickly called her elder daughter Crystal to immediately come to the house because Natise was hurt. At that time, Crystal was not staying with them because she was already married and she had 2 children. However, she lived on the same block where her father, Howard, and her sister, Natise, lived. Crystal quickly went to her father's house. When she got into the kitchen, she found her younger sister, Natise, unresponsive, and there was blood everywhere. At first, they thought that Natise had gone into labor or had fallen and hit her head, so they quickly called 911. A few minutes later, the paramedics arrived at Howard's house. They tried to save Natise Johnson and her unborn baby, but it was already too late. Natise Johnson was dead. The paramedics determined that the baby inside her womb died 20 minutes later due to oxygen deprivation. The police immediately started investigating the death of Natise Johnson and her unborn baby. They discovered that Natise was shot multiple times in the head, resulting to her death. As they processed the scene of crime, they discovered that there was no sign of forced entry, so they ruled out home invasion as the mode of the murder. The investigators then began to focus on the people who were involved in Natise's life. The first suspect was Tyree, Natise Johnson's boyfriend and the father of her unborn child. Investigators first questioned Natise's family about Tyree and his relationship with Natise. However, according to the family, Tyree was a good man and he and Natise had no problems in their relationship. In fact, Tyree was excited about Natise's pregnancy. While the investigators were still at the crime scene at around 8 p.m. that night, Tyree showed up at Howard's home. Immediately, the investigators started questioning him concerning Natise's murder. Tyree told the investigators that he came back from Virginia to be with Natise when she gives birth. When he got into the city, he called Natise several times, but she never answered her phone. Later on, when Natise didn't answer her phone, he came to their house and knocked on the door, but no one opened the door, so he left. He was with his brother the entire day. The investigators investigated Tyree's whereabouts at that time. They also spoke with his brother, and they confirmed that indeed Tyree was with his brother during that time, so he was telling the truth. The investigators immediately ruled Tyree out as a suspect in the murder of Natise Johnson. They then collected Natise's phone and took it for analysis so that they can get the phone records. As the investigations intensified, the investigators asked Natise's family if she was in a relationship with a man before she met Tyree. The family confirmed that Natise Johnson was in a relationship. However, her ex-boyfriend was abusing her. Whenever they would argue, the boyfriend would throw anything that was in front of him at her. Natise could not tolerate his abusive behaviors, so she broke up with him. Natise then filed a restraining order against him. Unfortunately, the order wasn't served because Natise did not show up at the court. However, Natise recently met him at a market in the neighborhood. After the investigators heard the story, immediately Natise's ex-boyfriend became a person of interest. Investigators got his address and they went for him. Upon arriving at his house, they didn't find him. Fortunately, they learned from the neighbors that he worked at Philadelphia International Airport. The investigators went at his workplace where they questioned him. He told the investigators that he had nothing to do with Natise's death. The investigators questioned him about seeing Natise in the market pregnant. He told the investigators that he and Natise always had their ups and downs in their relationship, and that is why they broke up. The ex-boyfriend told the investigators that he was okay with them breaking up, and he was not mad enough to kill her over it. The ex-boyfriend told the investigators that he was at work all day at the time when Natise was murdered. Later on, he went to see his new girlfriend. The investigators were able to confirm at his workplace if indeed he was at work during the time when Natise was murdered. His new girlfriend also confirmed that he was with him during that time. After the investigators confirmed that he was telling the truth, he was ruled out as a suspect in the murder of Natise Johnson and her unborn baby. The family decided to bury Natise Johnson and her unborn baby, since Natise was on the process of deciding a name for her unborn child, but didn't do it because she was murdered. The family named the unborn child Tamia Nicole, and so Natise was buried together with her unborn daughter, Tamia Nicole. As the investigations continued, the investigators again returned to the family. They asked them if they had another person in mind who was in a romantic relationship with Natise. The family said that before Natise met Tyree, she dated another man for about 3 months. The investigators knew they had to find that man and bring him in for questioning. After finding him, the man told the investigators that he didn't murder Natise. However, he believed that Natise's pregnancy was his. The investigators asked for his DNA samples so that they can investigate if the unborn child belonged to him. He readily gave them his DNA. However, after a thorough investigations, the investigators were able to discover that he was not involved in Natise's murder, so they quickly ruled him out as a suspect. Several days after the murder, police finally received the phone records of Natise's cell phone. They discovered that on the day of the murder, an unknown call came into Natise's phone at 12 p.m., and their conversation lasted for at least an hour. When the investigators investigated that number, they discovered that it belonged to her best friend. So they brought her in for questioning. Natise's best friend revealed that they always spoke to each other on phone almost every day. They would talk a lot about what was going on in their lives, so she knew a lot about what was happening to Natise. She revealed that on the day Natise was murdered, the two spoke to each other on the phone for about an hour. But at 1 p.m., Natise told her that she had to go because someone was at the door. She revealed to the investigators that after that call, Natise never called back again. She added that Natise had an issue with a man named Kareem Samson. The investigators knew that they had to find Kareem Samson and bring him in for questioning. Kareem Samson and Natise were childhood friends, so they had known each other for years. Kareem's girlfriend and Natise were good friends. Later on, Kareem started being abusive towards the lady. When the abusiveness became too much, the lady could not tolerate it, so she took their child and left the relationship. The lady then met Natise's brother, and they started dating, but later the girl again went away. Kareem couldn't accept that her girlfriend had left him, so he wanted her back. Kareem knew that his ex-girlfriend was friends with Natise, so in order to know her whereabouts, he began to constantly call Natise. He would ask her where his ex-girlfriend was, and when Natise told him that she didn't know. Kareem accused Natise of lying to him, and he would harass her. Detectives tracked Kareem down. They went to his workplace and brought him back to the city, where they questioned him about Natise's death. Kareem denied any involvement in Natise's death. He told the investigators that he didn't have any problems with her, so he had no reason to kill her. The investigators asked him the last time he spoke to Natise. He said that he never spoke with her for a long time. The investigators then confronted Kareem with Natise's phone records capturing their conversations. It was then that Kareem confessed. He told the investigators that on Saturday, 27th March 1999, when Natise was home, he went to Natise's house to confront her about what she knew about his ex-girlfriend, since he was convinced that she knew about her whereabouts. During that time, Natise was 9 months pregnant and 3 days overdue. She was supposed to have given birth already, but the labor pain had not yet started. Since Kareem was her childhood friend, Natise let him in so that they could talk. Once inside Natise's house, Kareem followed Natise inside the kitchen. He demanded that Natise must tell him about his ex-girlfriend whereabouts. However, Natise refused to tell him. Instead, she told him that his ex-girlfriend was a big girl and she could do whatever she wanted. Natise didn't want to involve herself in Kareem's love drama. Her response made Kareem more angry, so he pulled out his gun and shot Natise 3 times in the head and once at the back, killing her and her unborn baby. After that confession, Kareem Samson was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. He stood trial for the murder of Natise and was convicted for the murder of both Natise and her unborn baby. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for both counts of murder.